Hey y'all, welcome to the Southern Appalachian Herbal Podcast. I'm Judson Carroll and I'm an herbalist. I'm also a wild crafter, a gardener, and herb grower. I'm coming to you from high atop the beautiful Blue Ridge Mountains of North Carolina, just a stone's throw from the Tennessee line, overlooking the Pisgah National Forest, absolutely surrounded by the bounty of God's green earth. I spent most of my life wandering these mountains and learning about plants from the old timers and all sorts of characters. On this show, we'll talk about herbs and how to use them, how to find them, how to grow them, how to make preparations. We'll talk about a lot of things. We can also talk about permaculture, homesteading, foraging, and living off the land. Most anything, really. You can email me at southernappalachianherbs@gmail.com if you have a question or a comment. You can also contact me through the Grow Network, where I'm a regular contributor and a moderator for the forums. And my blog is, of course, southernappalachianherbs@blogspot.com. All right, y'all. I'm going to sit my guitar down and let's talk about herbs. Hey everybody, welcome to the show. It is a beautiful, sunny Sunday afternoon. It is Easter Sunday, and I just want to wish everybody a very happy Easter. You know, I enjoy doing these podcasts on Sunday afternoons because it's just a nice time to relax and talk with my friends. And that's how I feel about my audience. And the feedback I get from y'all, it's great. It keeps me going, and I just really appreciate it. It's funny. We had well, I guess 2 pretty warm weeks, and it was looking, like spring's come in, and then I guess by coincidence, if there is such a thing, on Good Friday, a cold front came in, and I mean, we had lows down in the 20s and upper teens. I mean, there was snow and ice in spots, and today it's Easter Sunday, and it's back up to about 70 degrees and sunny. Kind of amazing how that worked. It's like everything just kind of came together perfectly timed. And now I walk outside after 2 days of cold dormancy. And now the birds are singing and the flowers are blooming, and it's that time of rebirth. And it's so pretty out there today. I actually had to come inside to do the podcast today. I would like to be out there, but a little breeze came up and the pollen looks like a big yellow cloud. So I figured rather than cough my way through this show, and sneeze, I would take the easy way out. Well, and that reminds me, always check your frost dates. This may be common sense to some of y'all if you've been gardening for a while, but I find a lot of people really aren't aware of this, especially in this day and age when people move around and they don't stay in the same place they were born. You can go to the USDA website or the Old Farmer's Almanac or like Dave's Garden's a great website. Marjorie Wildcraft is putting together a really good regional gardening guide on the Grow Network. Should be coming out soon. You have an average first frost date and an average last frost date. I see a lot of people that go out and start planting on the first warm day and they feel like spring's coming in, and then a killing frost comes through, and it's just, it's frustrating. It's a waste of time and money and energy. And, that's why when I planted a few things a few weeks ago, I did them in buckets so I could bring them inside and get them out of the frost because I knew we'd have more cold and snow before Easter. We always do. But spring is here now, even though my last official frost date won't be until I believe somewhere around May 1. So I've got another month of having to be careful about such as that in the mountains. Down in the Piedmont Sandhills coastal part of the state, I think it's more like April 15. So anyway, we've all got a little chance of a frost still come in, but yeah, it feels great today. I want to talk with you a little bit about a summit, an online virtual summit I did about a week ago. It was the Herbal Entrepreneur Summit, and it was put together by Yolanda Joy, and it was just really great. It was fun. It was a week, I think about 6 presentations a day of herbalists, really focusing on how they built their herbal business, how they do their herbal business, what it takes, whether it was a grower, um, whether it was a someone who makes herbal preparations, a clinical herbalist. I mean, it was just really across the board, and there were a bunch of names you'd recognize. I mean, Rosemary Gladstar, she presented. She's always such a character. Always leaves me asking the question, am I the only herbalist who has never seen a fairy or had a two-way conversation with a plant? I always ask that because that's something she does. And yeah, she's a real character, but she's a legend in the herbal writing and teaching industry, I guess you'd say. I learned about a lot of her work was through the Grow Network, but she's been around, I guess, writing since the 70s. Anyway, it was fun. And they kept coming back to this question of basically, what is your herbal path? And let me go ahead and tell you, I think they're going to do this annually. So keep an eye out for that. And remember, it's Yolanda Joy, Herbal Entrepreneurs. I'm sure you can find it online, bookmark it, get on their mailing list or whatever, because it's free if you want to see it live, or you can pay to see it later. And they'll do it every year. And I really recommend it. I mean, it's very good. I mean, they talked about elderberry syrups, tinctures, all kinds of stuff. But the question that kept coming up was really, what's your place in herbalism? If you're going to make a living at doing this, how are you going to do it? What are your talents? Well, I kind of know my talents. I mean, I write, teach, talk. Um, I grow herbs and vegetables and fruit and all kinds of stuff, nuts and everything. I love to be in the woods, wild crafting. I've been doing this most of my life. And, it's all I ever wanted to do, honestly. I mean, I've had various careers. I worked in politics for over a decade. I worked in journalism for, I don't know, 15 years. Miserable, absolute misery. Ever since I was a child, I just wanted to be outside. My grandfather gave me a love of farming that no matter what my grandmother did to try to dissuade me, just, I never shook it off. Um, So, even as a kid, I just wanted to be outside. I hated school. I mean, my eyes were always out the window or in a book and not listening to the teacher. They hated that. I just wanted to be outside. And so that's where my talents lay. And it occurs to me that if I had a time machine, I know exactly what I'd do for a living. You probably heard of the old medicine shows. Back before the Pure Foods and Drug Act, people made patent medicines, whether it was a pharmacist or an herbalist, or your grandmother had a good cold remedy. You could put that in a bottle and you could sell it. There was no law to prevent that. Some of these preparations were as good or better than any of the pharmaceuticals on the market today. I mean, you've heard the old saying, oh, that's just snake oil. Well, you know what snake oil was? Snake oil was a preparation of echinacea. So-called snake oil because some venomous snakes and certain spiders, like the brown recluse and the hobo spider, when they bite you, their venom is necrotizing. It breaks down tissue. What it actually does is break down hyaluronic acid. Hyaluronic acid has kind of been described, I think Seven Song said it this way, and it made sense to me. It's like the mortar between the bricks of your cells. When the hyaluronic acid is dissolved, those cells just start falling apart. Now, if you get a brown recluse spider bite today and you go to the doctor, they're going to treat you with modern pharmaceuticals, antibiotics. They're going to do their best. But that tissue is going to keep dying, and there's not a whole lot they can do about it. You will most likely, I mean, it depends on how quickly it gets treated, but you will most likely end up with this nasty, rotting hole in your arm until that venom finally loses its effectiveness. And I mean, this can be a long term um, really bad thing. It's even worse, of course, with rattlesnake bites. Well, echinacea uh, protects hyaluronic acid. It also helps your body to produce more hyaluronic acid. So that snake oil was actually a much better treatment for snake bite than just about anything we have today in modern medicine. But, the medical industry said, oh, these are hucksters and fraudsters, and we got to get rid of the snake oil. So the medicine shows were usually sponsored by one of these patent medicine companies. And there'd be this a Barker, Think of like a P.T. Barnum type, or uh, Nicholas, oh, what was his name? The Ziegfeld Follies. Yeah, Florian Ziegfeld. Yeah. They would stand out there and they would pitch that product. And then have music. They had a lot of our best American music. Those musicians were seasonal. They'd be on vaudeville for a season, and the rest of the time they'd be traveling around with a medicine show. I mean, jazz musicians, blues, country, American music champions, fiddle players. This is how they did things. They would bring along with them clowns and jugglers and acrobats, and they'd go from town to town and they'd put on a medicine show. And it was the big thing. I mean, this was before TV and radio really was, before radio. And um, yeah, I mean, basically before the entire recording industry. I mean, records came along very like the tail end of it. But the whole town would turn out and they'd see this great circus. They'd have hours of concerts, and in between, this fellow would walk out and he'd say, step up, ladies and gentlemen. This patent medicine will cure all your ills. It'll prevent hair loss. It'll treat dyspepsia. They make all these claims. And they always have these great catch lines that I just love, like, this product we call Georgia Sunshine because it is made in the light of the sun. Were it made under the light of the moon, it may be called moonshine. But no, ladies and gentlemen, this is sweet Georgia Sunshine right here in this bottle, guaranteed to lift your spirits and put some pep in your step. Well, of course, these were often very highly alcoholic beverages. And the medicine shows went through the rural areas, and they especially went to what they call dry counties where you couldn't sell alcohol. So, there's no doubt. I mean, y'all know me. I play guitar, I play banjo, mandolin, and I don't mind speaking confidently. If I had a time machine, if I could pick any of these herbal careers, I would certainly I'd have my own medicine show. There's no doubt about it. That would be like dream come true. I would have so much fun with that. Um, there's, well, actually, if you want to look it up, there's a documentary company. They did a lot of stuff in the 80s, but most of their films are still archived on their site. It's called Folkstream. I think it's folkstream.net. It could be .org. I'm not sure. But they did a show called Free Show Tonight, and it was hosted by Roy Acuff. Roy Acuff was a legendary country musician. He started out in the medicine show circuit, so he got together all these old medicine show performers. Um, I mean, there's guys like Hash House Harry who played in Charlie Poole Jr.'s band. There's great comedians, jugglers, and they put together an actual recreation of an old medicine show. I think it was in Marion, North Carolina, just down the mountain from me. Could have been over toward Hickory, I can't remember. Um, but it's just a fun documentary. It's only about an hour long. It's free, so a free show tonight. I highly recommend you check it out if you're interested in just seeing what things were before all the regulations. And that's where I'm going with this. If you hadn't figured it out by now, I I don't like barriers to entry. Okay, people think today, you got to have these regulations to protect people. That's what these rules against patent medicine were based on. Well, I mean, you think about this. My ancestors came here, mostly Celtic, Scottish, Irish. They didn't much care about tea. They came here to make whiskey. And they fought for the right to make whiskey. And when they were trappers and they were farmers, and they didn't want to be regulated and taxed, basically. They talk about the shot heard around the world. And if you go to a regular public school in America, you're going to think all the history of America happened up north. It was Concord, Massachusetts. No, the first victory in the Revolutionary War was in Kings Mountain, North Carolina. General Ferguson sent word to the Over Mountain men, which happen to have had their camp just a few miles from where I live. Sycamore Shoals. It's now part of Elizabethton, Tennessee. They were trappers and furriers, traders, mountain men. They put up a sign there that said, "You're now under the authority of the king. You swear allegiance to the king, or you're dead." Well, they didn't much like that. You don't mess with a bunch of hillbillies. They literally walked mostly, many of them barefoot. Some of them had horses, but most of them walked or in moccasins, not a lot of foot protection from Sycamore Shoals, Tennessee, modern day Tennessee, down to Kings Mountain and defeated the largest, most sophisticated army in the Western world at that time on that mountain. George Washington said that's what was the model of how America would win the war, and they did. Unfortunately, before they could even get home and get back to making whiskey, George Washington then marched against them and put down what he called the Whiskey Rebellion because that government was going to be funded by taxes. The new government was going to be funded by taxes, and it was going to be funded by a tax on liquor. So, the old Who song, meet the new boss, same as the old boss. Well, we got fooled again, didn't we? We got fooled a lot of times. It's always said we got to do things for safety reasons. You remember The Simpsons? Think of the children. Won't someone think of the children? Yeah, well, it's always for the children and it's always supposed to get better, but it never really seems to. I mean, Upton Sinclair wrote The Jungle and freaked everybody out about food safety. His whole goal was not to do a thing about food safety. He wanted to unionize the food industry. He was an open communist and a communist labor leader, but he freaked everybody out about nasty factory conditions, and we got pure foods. Well, now it's illegal in the land of the free and the home of the brave to buy unpasteurized milk. Never mind that the entire world has been drinking unpasteurized milk for literally millions of years. Never mind that the Amish drink unpasteurized milk and have lower instances of asthma among their kids, lower instances of all kinds of autoimmune diseases, allergies. The only state around here that has actually legalized raw milk is South Carolina. But it was just a few years ago. I was down in Georgia and a SWAT team literally raided a co-op, guns drawn, like they were going after crack dealers to see if they had unpasteurized milk. I mean, that's nuts, right? That's crazy. So I'm watching this, the home medicine summit, or not, I'm sorry, not home medicine, the Herbal Entrepreneur Summit, and like I said, enjoying it. But when they started talking about the regulations, I mean, if you put together a tincture or you put together some herbal product, I mean, it's regulated to what size the font has to be on the label. Um, some things like the herbs have to be inspected, tested for salmonella. Okay. I have never taken herbs and dried them and have any problem with salmonella contamination. You know, well, this is a little bit of a tangent. Do you know salmonella, that everyone thinks is the reason you can't eat raw eggs, has never been found in an egg from a backyard chicken coop? No, it comes from the nasty conditions in chicken houses, the big industrial controlled animal feeding units that stink and have ruined our countryside where millions of chickens are packed into a small space, put on antibiotics. That is considered by the government to be safe. That nasty, stinking, unnatural environment that is only held together by pharmaceuticals is considered to be safe. The same thing with cattle and feedlots or pigs, being raised in a controlled animal feeding unit, CAFU, I think, operation, CAFO, controlled animal feeding operation. These are horrible. I mean, they stink. They contaminate the ground. They contaminate the water. They make the countryside in many parts of my state absolutely unlivable. And instead of anyone saying, "Hey, you know what? If you raise a few chickens in the backyard, or if you raise your pigs and such a little more naturally, if you let your cows graze the way Joel Salatin does up in Virginia, everyone would love the countryside again. It would smell good. The meat would be cleaner and fresher. It would taste better. It would have more nutrition." No, we get these big campaigns of save the farmer. They're attacking agriculture. Meanwhile, the small farms have been taken by the big ag industry that but this whole thing, I mean, we don't have many small farmers anymore because the industry is weighted toward these big producers. That may seem like a tangent, but it's really not. Because when I'm looking at these regulations, I mean, you may have to make things in a laboratory. You may have to make things in a commercial kitchen. You may have to have, well, like I said, outside testing. I mean, there's so many rules about what you can and can't say. It's not just a matter of you can't make any medical claims. I walked away and said, well, that's it. I'm not making any products. Now, there are other people that, okay, they like regulations. They enjoy filling out their taxes. They enjoy doing office work. Not me. I don't know. What it comes down to is a barrier to entry. Whereas before, your great grandmother could have made up some kitchen medicine on her home table, And she could have, not just given it to her family, but maybe sold a little bit to a neighbor. Now that's illegal. All these rules and regulations that are supposed to protect us really just benefit industry and bureaucracy. They don't really protect us. Now, someone might be asking out there, but wait a minute, what if it is fraudulent? What if this is, you know, fake snake oil? I don't, okay, take out all the rules and regulations. What options do you have left? Let's say the only rule was this product has to have in it what it says. That's it. Buyer beware, right? It has to accurately show on the label what the ingredients are. Somebody does something crazy. I mean, all right, maybe not so crazy. We've had a lot of fraudulent products coming in the country from China that are counterfeit and toxic. Okay, but look, we're talking American producers here. We're talking the guy down the street or, a small pharmacy, even a big pharmacy if they were still using herbal medicine, and they put something fraudulent on that label. Sue them. Sue them. There you go. Right now, if you have a complaint, you might call the FDA or something and lodge a complaint. And their bureaucrat will follow up on it and they may get fined. Hey, that doesn't work. We could actually remedy to get pure products is to sue them. I mean, I don't like lawyers any more than anybody else, but you make a couple of examples and people are going to start putting real stuff on there. I mean, there may even be criminal charges if someone put something poisonous, in a product and didn't tell people. We don't need all these regulations. We just need some common sense. I mean, I'm reminded, I mentioned, sometimes you have to have a commercial kitchen to make these products. A few years ago, now, I mean, my family has a long history of barbecue. I mean, like 400 years. And I wanted to open a restaurant. All right. This was before a lot of the regulations that now made, I wouldn't even want to open a restaurant. I don't know who's using what bathroom, and I don't want to be responsible for what goes on in there. I mean, I don't, I mean, this was before Obamacare. This was before all these, costs went through the roof of employing people. I don't want anything to do with it now. But at that time I did, and I'm not going to say where this was, not to protect the innocent, but to protect myself in case I'm ever in that area again. I don't want to be run off the road or, anything else, because it really was that corrupt. I call up the local, health guy, health inspector, whatever, and he's, oh man, that would be great. He's a good guy. um, to a point. And, similar accent, and I knew some of the people he knew, so he felt comfortable talking to me. He's like, man, that would be great. We'd love to have you open this restaurant. He's like, I'd be there every day. I mean, real barbecue cooked over live hickory coals. Ice cream, I was going to do some homemade ice cream too. He's like, I would love this. My family would love this. We want this. Okay, here's what you're going to need. So he starts telling me about the regulations. He's talking about a commercial kitchen. He's talking, no, this is in the area I'm talking about. For hundreds of years, people have cooked barbecue in pits. It used to be a hole in the ground, and they would do like brick or cinder block pits, grates. You shovel live coal over it. Basically, you just put that under a picnic shelter. If you're going to have a restaurant, they used to screen it in and put a sink to the side. Been done this way for hundreds of years, but now can't do it that way anymore. No. Now you've got to have an impervious floor, impervious walls, impervious ceiling. You've got to have a certain vent hood, which costs a fortune. You have to have wire racks, 3 shelves. You can't have any wooden shelves or anything. You have to have 3 sinks. You may be one person working there, but you have to have 3 sinks. You have to have the bathroom separate from here. You have to have this. And I mean, by the time you've gone through and food storage, oh my gosh, and the freezers and everything. I was looking at them, even if I bought the equipment used, I was looking at an additional expense of $50,000. I wasn't too happy about that, but I thought, if this is what I have to do, and then here comes the kicker. He said, you might as well go ahead and budget at least 5,000 for blank. Blank was the name of the codes and stuff. And I'm like, what? And he said, oh yeah, if you don't pay him right off, right off the door, bat. I mean, before you've even done anything, if you don't go ahead and give him a payment, he's going to shut you down. Okay, that's bribery, right? I mean, this isn't a legitimate code violation. I'm not paying someone for a service. If I don't pay this guy, he's coming in to shut me down. I later talked with someone who did open a business and didn't pay him and was told that he came and measured every door. He came in with a level and checked every little spot in the parking lot. Like if there was a pebble, he'd set the level on there and say this parking lot's uneven and you're in violation of I don't know, I think it was like a handicap accessibility law, and he shut them down. I mean, this is literally blatant corruption. Okay, so barriers to entry, right? I now had to have at least $55,000 on top of what it would cost to start the restaurant. Okay, I threw up my hands and said, that's it. I'm not going to do it. Well, ironically, in the same county, there was a little tienda that I used to go to. I love authentic Mexican food. And, nobody there spoke English. There was no health inspection thing on the wall. They weren't inspected. They weren't regulated. They had taken an old gas station and by the mop room, the little washroom behind the counter, put up a table and a hot plate and were selling tamales. Delicious tamales. Okay, I bought a lot of those tamales. I liked them. My problem isn't with these illegal immigrants who are operating a business the way every American should be allowed to operate. My problem is citizens not being allowed to do the same thing. Barriers to entry put up by regulations. I kind of asked around and was told, you know what? We just turn a blind eye to what they do because we can't enforce the codes. One, they don't have valid identification. We can give them tickets and they're not going to show up to court date. They're just going to move across the county line and operate under another name. There's no way we can enforce those laws. So, equal treatment under the law, equal protection, land of the free, opportunity? No. Barriers to entry, preventing the law and abiding from making an honest living, where those who are allowed to break the law, whether they even know they're doing it, and these who probably didn't even know they were breaking the law, you know, laws are for the law abiding, regulations are for the regulation abiding. All these laws are barriers to entry that keep people from following their dreams, and I hate that. But also, like jargon. And Doc Jones talked about this. Sometimes we read herbal books and the words like diaphoretics or emollients or vulneraries. I usually try when I use one of those words to say what it means, because if I'm using a word that you don't understand, it's not doing you any good. I don't expect you to run to the internet or a dictionary and look up that vulnerary means vulnerary means wound healing. I mean, you might know what expectorant is. It helps you cough up mucus. But I mean, there's some terms that create a barrier to entry. And one of the biggest questions I get every day almost is, how can I become a certified herbalist? And I go back and say, there's no such thing. I mean, yeah, you can earn a certification. You can't be licensed. There's no licensure because essentially practicing herbal medicine isn't legal. I mean, you can do it. You just can't say this just to treat a condition and, you're paying me like you would a doctor. So people say, well, how can I get licensure? You can't. Now, some herbalists want there to be a licensure. Don't. I mean, think about the way I learned herbs. I learned herbs from old mountain people, people that didn't have much education, formal education whatsoever. They had more knowledge passed down to them than someone that could go sit, 8 or 12 years in a university. You can't take the folk medicine out of herbal medicine and it still be worth anything. And then you got the I mean, whose herbal medicine are you judging by? Does it have to be traditional Chinese medicine? So the British tradition doesn't count? Does it have to be British traditional medicine and Native American herbology doesn't count? I mean, you have to have a standard. Is it Ayurveda? I mean, think about it. Do you focus on the Greeks, or do you literally expect someone to sit there and learn every single herbal tradition ever practiced in the entire world? And that's going to get them a license to practice? Yeah. What about homeopathy? Do they have to learn homeopathy too? I mean, okay, a lot of people want to go that route. I like to learn all this stuff on my own. I mean, I'm not at all opposed to learning, but then again, what about like the old witch woman they used to call her that lived up the road, who all the locals went to treat their conditions, probably functionally illiterate? I mean, if you were in like I don't know, a remote tribe somewhere, and you only had certain illnesses, all of our viruses and such hadn't come in there, you may only use 5 or 10 herbs to treat everything. They could be absolutely adequate for what you have to treat as a person in that isolated region. Are we going to say that person isn't an herbalist because they only know 10 or 15 herbs? And over here, this person has a diploma that says they know the use of 400 herbs. Well, those 400 herbs aren't going to help that tribe. They're going to be useless. They're going to have 375 herbs that can't be used that they know about, most of which are going to grow there and won't help anybody. So, no, I don't believe we need licensure. Certification's fine. I got tons of certifications. Here, let me check. I have 29 certifications. Everything from herbal medicine. I've got master herbalist. I've got herbal medicine making. I've got herbal energetics. I've got everything. I mean, permaculture, beekeeping, forestry. I've got certifications out the wazoo, as they say. Doesn't matter. It's a piece of paper. It's what I know that matters. It's what you know that matters. And there should not be any barrier to entry, whether it's educational, whether it's trying to fit in with someone else's tradition, or whether it's legal and bureaucracy. I believe firmly and strongly, I believe it's my mission to tell people and to encourage everyone, herbal medicine is folk medicine. It's kitchen medicine. It's for you to treat yourself and your family and hopefully your neighbors, hopefully your friends. How you make a living at doing that, that's up to you. I don't think anybody should be standing in your way telling you anything. And like the herbalist Michael Moore, he basically, I mean, he was a clinical herbalist, basically working as a doctor would. Intake form, he looks at him, he gives a prescription. What he did was not technically legal, but he always said, "Hey, I'm helping people. You help people, they're not going to sue you." Hey, I hope that's still true, right? He also said, "I don't have anything worth taking." If you don't have a lot of money, if you're not the doctor driving the new Mercedes, you're, the next door neighbor driving a beat up old Jeep or something. No one's going to try to take something from you. I don't know if that's true anymore. I mean, we're in this such a litigious society. You're going to have to choose your own path. But I never want to lose the aspect of folk medicine. It's the heart of who we are as people who interact with nature and the people around us, is to understand nature and help use it in the way intended. There's no college that's going to give you that. There are a very, very few college programs in America. There are a few really good ones in Canada. You can learn a lot. Like Tori said in our interview a couple weeks ago, you can actually get malpractice insurance as an herbalist in Canada. Yeah, you can't get that in America. So anyway, I do encourage you to watch the Herbal Entrepreneur Summit, whether the last one or next year's, and find the path that suits you. Like I said, I like to be in the woods. I like to be in the garden. I don't necessarily like to deal with other people's mucus and pus and stuff, so I wouldn't be a good clinical herbalist anyway. But I definitely don't like office work and regulations and filling out paperwork. So yeah, it really made clear to me, no, I'm not making herbal products unless the regulations change. I mean, where I live, the wild crafting and growing and selling herbs in their, raw state, their dried form, crude form, whatever you want to call it. People have made their living this way for hundreds of years, so we have pretty darn good regulations on that. I mean, it's not a barrier to entry, but you still can do it. You can find your path. And really, I want people to think about folk medicine and just maybe not getting so hung up on titles. I mean, I'm an herbalist. I don't say anything more than that. When someone asks me what I do, I say I'm an herbalist. We can all find a way to navigate it. Some of us are a little better at navigating certain things, have a little more patience than others, but don't give up. By no means give up. I mean, when I started looking at all those regulations, I was just ready to throw up my hands and quit. And then it hit me, wait a minute, that's not my path in the first place. You know? So yeah, I mean, stay hopeful. This is the time of hope. This is the time of renewal, and get out there and just enjoy it. I mean, this is the time of year that it's just great to be outside. Really. All right, so y'all have a good one, and I will talk with you next week. The information in this podcast is not intended to diagnose or treat any disease or condition. Nothing I say or write has been evaluated or approved by the FDA. I'm not a doctor. The U.S. government does not recognize the practice of herbal medicine, and there is no governing body regulating herbalists. Therefore, I'm really just a guy who studies herbs. I'm not offering any advice. I won't even claim that anything I write or say is accurate or true. I can tell you what herbs have been traditionally used for. I can tell you my own experience and if I believe an herb has helped me. I cannot nor would I tell you to do the same. If you use an herb anyone recommends, you are treating yourself. You take full responsibility for your health. Humans are individuals and no two are identical. What works for me may not work for you. You may have an allergy, a sensitivity, an underlying condition that no one else even shares and you don't even know about. Be careful with your health. By continuing to listen to my podcast or read my blog, you agree to be responsible for yourself, do your own research, make your own choices, and not to blame me for anything ever.